Hello, friends. Amy here from the Art of Imperfect Adulting. I'm going to share in this video my three takeaways from my recent trip to PodFest in 2026. I'm recording this January 2026. I am very impressed by people who get these videos out right away, right after an event. It's taken me a couple days to figure out what were the most important things, then really synthesize my experience. In fact, I recorded a version of this 2 days ago that I actually deleted and will never publish because I realized I didn't think it was helpful in the best ways. The reason I'm recording this is truly that there are not a lot of events that are made for independent creators at this time. It's expensive to go to live events. It's amazing. It's really, really helpful, and I support it. But having as much information as possible to make that decision might be helpful for other people. So this was my second time attending PodFest. It happens in the state of Florida where I live, so it's an easy trip for me. I went in 2020 for the first time, and I will be honest, this year felt significantly different than that experience. It's been 5 years. That's fair. Before I jump into specific things from year to year, I want to share something that came up in the conversations with my friends who were attending this year for the first time, because this is something that I think is consistent in this event. It's not a bad thing. It is something that's helpful to be ready for before you go. As far as I know, speakers are allowed, accepted to sell from their stage when they make this presentation. And that's not the case at a lot of events. So this is not something that bothers me. I don't mind being sold to. I actually consider it quite helpful when I'm shopping for things to have somebody do a very good presentation that could be considered a sales pitch. And so it's just something to be ready for, because if you're not expecting it, it might catch you by surprise. Okay, so now things about this event in 2026 that I thought were notable. One is who and what was not there. Two is a question that came up about what is this conference really about? And three, the overall age of the speakers and attendees. Okay, so everything I share today is my own personal opinion. I do not have a relationship with the people who put on the show in any sort of affiliate way. I do have a lot of respect for them for creating something that has not existed. They've been running this show for 12 years. Truly, this show gives an opportunity for creators to get together and mingle, and even to present, that is not easy to find in other places. So I have some respect for them. One thing that is notable to me about PodFest in 2026 is, like I said, what and who wasn't there. Okay. So they kept saying throughout the promotion of this event, leading up to it and during the event, that there were 2,000 attendees. They use an app during this event called Hova or Hova. I do not know how you say that. And there were 2,000 people listed in there. They encourage us to use the event to register for seminars and to connect with other attendees. So I noticed it. One thing you would have no reason to know about me at all ever is that in my 20s, when I worked for a technology company, I produced some live events. The largest of those was a user conference with 850-ish attendees. And so the only reason it matters is that I have like a mental concept from creating that event of how much hotel space 800 people takes up. 800 chairs, 800 badges, 800 lanyards, 800 canvas bags. Like, I very concretely recognize what that was. And so this event is like an a la carte menu at a steakhouse. You can just get one piece all by itself, or you can buy on other things. So there are simultaneous tracks running in different spots. If you buy the expo ticket that doesn't include anything, you have the option to add on, luncheon events with people, or the Hall of Fame dinner, or additional tracks that run concurrently. So the fact that I didn't see those people doesn't actually mean that they weren't there. And I guess they weren't, so the places that I was the main stage area, the expo hall, and the breakout rooms that were included in my badge admission for a speaker or a creator. That's where I was. And in fact, this was such a thing for me that I very dorkily took the time to count the chairs in the opening keynote session, and do the math, because it was less than 500 chairs, which is notably an enormous amount of people. I am not a person who could gather 500 people. And so being able to gather 500 people is notable and awesome and amazing. And so it just isn't 2,000. The keynote speaker, Pat Flynn, streamed remotely. He wasn't in attendance live at the event. This was stated that it wasn't the plan for the event. I believe that. And they did an amazing job streaming him live. But factually speaking, he wasn't there. So there was no opportunity to interact with him face to face. The exhibit hall was maybe not quite half full of exhibitors. I didn't actually do a count, so that could be inaccurate. But it struck me because there were empty booths where there wasn't anybody there. They had paid to have the expo hall folks set up the curtaining and the tables and the chairs, but there was no one there. And I did not go to this event with the idea that I would be creating any kind of content about the event. That's not what I do. But I did actually pull out my camera and film the expo hall because it was jarring to me that these were empty spaces. Um, the other thing is that the difference between the exhibitors between 2020 and 2026. 2020, when I went, I spent hours in the exhibit hall trying out gear because there were hardware providers. I spent time in the Heil booth trying out all the different microphones. I came home with stuff that I bought in the expo hall, right? None of that was there this year. So there were some hosting companies, a couple of hosting companies, but Spotify wasn't there, Apple wasn't there, Amazon wasn't there, Shure wasn't there, Rode wasn't there, no lighting providers, none of that was none of those companies chose to invest in the show as an exhibitor. So that's who wasn't there that stood out to me. The second thing that stood out to me overall that I think is worth sharing is that I felt like there was a very clear theme of Christianity in the speaker bios, the speaker topics, and a lot of the offerings that speakers were offering as their giveaway from their presentations. So this is actually the reason I almost didn't release this video. It's also the reason I'm not leading with that as the first thing, because I have, as a person, been the target of an organized group of attack from a very aggressive group of Christian women who chose to attack me on the internet. Many, many years ago, I said something about divorce not being, the worst thing that could ever happen to people in the world. And a group of women came after me about that. And it was not a lot of fun. And so me taking the time to do this, I don't want it to make me a target. If it does, it does, because the reason I'm highlighting this is not actually anything to do with the fact that there's anything wrong with this. There's not, right? The people who run PodFest and who sell the expo space and who are exhibiting there should do whatever they want to do in creating their event. And people who have a religious ideology that they want to share in the expo hall, they should do that. That's their business, right? In fact, that's one of the main reasons that people start their own private business is because you do want to infuse your morals and your values into your company. I understand that and I respect it. And like I said at the start, Chris Krimitsos, who's the founder and creator of this event, I respect him for building what he's built as something that didn't exist before and as a place that gives a meeting space, a gathering space, and even a speaking space for indie creators like myself. But in my experience, when our expectations don't match what we experience, that can be very uncomfortable. I'll give you a very stupid example of this. If somebody offers you a cup of something to drink and they say, hey, would you like this sweet, fizzy drink? And you take a sip and it's warm, salty chicken broth, the surprise might be unpleasant, but that doesn't mean that you don't like chicken broth. It just means that the surprise wasn't what you were expecting. If you are looking for a conference of Christian podcasters, authors, and YouTubers, this show might be right up your alley. And on the flip side, I will say, if you don't want that, then consider it maybe before you go, because I found there to be a significant amount of very specific Christian programming throughout the time I was there. And to be specific about what I mean by Christian programming, I will show you the website of one of the exhibitors who was there at the show, because it's a good example of what I'm talking about. So the National Christian Association of Professional Speakers was on exhibit in the expo hall. which is great. This is their website, a community of excellence for Christian professional speakers shining their light on both sacred and secular stages, right? And this is their first call out on their website, which is what I want to talk about. What we want is not more speakers on Christian topics, but more Christian professionals speaking on other topics with their Christianity latent, so that God's glory and its gospel can go out to all the world through speeches, examples, and lives of Christian experts in every industry across the board. Okay. So that's this organization. They were an exhibitor in the exhibit hall. I do not know what their relationship is to the show organizers overall. And so just for comparison, and I'll go ahead and stop the share so that that's off the screen. Just for comparison, one of my core values is transparency. And the transparency is sort of the opposite of having a latent message, because latent means hidden or obscured or hard to find. And so anytime anybody comes into contact with me, I want them to be very clear about what I do and what I don't do. And I appreciate that when I see it in other people. And so when I came across that in one of these vendor booths, it stuck with me. And I thought it was worth calling out. One of the last thing I'm going to touch on based on this is things that stood out to me from PodFest 2026 is the age of the speakers and the audience overall. I'm 52, so if a lot of people consider me old, very few people consider midlifers in their 50s the hotbed of, brand new innovation. Like we're looking to, Gen Zers and Gen Alpha for that kind of energy. And so when I tell you that the people in this conference were not young, just that's to give you a perspective of my starting point. One of the presentations that I saw on the stage when I was there was a woman who was literally there to teach telephone skills for telephone follow-up for recruiting guests onto your podcast. And I was chagrined by this in an amusing way because I don't even really answer my phone, y'all. Like truly, truly, if you call me, the only reason I'm going to answer is if you are one of my kids or if I know that we're expecting the call. And as somebody who produced 170 podcast episodes in 2025 and handled over 1,200 guest applications, a telephone is not a part of my process at all. And so this was very interesting to me. Anyway, I would say that if you were looking for a youthful, energetic, innovative audience where that's happening, this may not be where you will find it unless they change it in the future, in which case I would revise that statement. And that's entirely possible. So these are three things that I noticed at PodFest 2026. And you might feel like these three things are critical of this show. That's totally fair. Let me do my best to end this on a positive note of affection and compliment to the people who organized this event. It's a very organized event. Organizing live events like this is a labor of love. It's very labor intensive, and this is a well-organized event. The main stage and the AV equipment setup, you guys, was fantastic. And so I just want to give it some praise and some credit because it really stunned me and blew me away how much they put into this. So I was invited to give a very short 5-minute presentation on Thursday. There are about 60 of these. This is what I'm talking about when I say that they actually do give indie creators an opportunity to present here, which is a very cool thing. And I'm very thankful to have been allowed to be a part of it. There were about 60, I think, of us who gave 5-minute presentations. There was this gorgeous, amazing, huge stage. Huge stage. You had to walk up 3 steps. It was there. It was really well built. 3 screens, right? So one with the logo of the show behind me, 2 where the slides were behaving, and they streamed that. The lighting was amazing. So the lighting behind me was right, and I was lit up, and it wasn't blown out in any way. In front of me as a presenter, I had live streaming monitors across the front of the stage where I could see my slides from wherever I was on the stage. They were making live recordings because they sell a recording package to everybody who attends, or they offer it to you. You can buy it. You're not forced to buy it after the show. One of the things that stood out to me as somebody who does some speaking and has spoken in a variety of places and stuff like that is that the microphones had these two wireless microphones on the stage, and it worked perfectly across 60 speakers. You guys, this never happens. Every place I go that I've ever been given a microphone, and there's a variety of people, there's somebody who's not close enough to the microphone, or they move around and it doesn't work, or the batteries go dead. That did not happen. They had a team of people who were running this, so it just really ran flawlessly, up to and including the fact that the majority of the speakers, this is the way this runs, is everybody gets 5 minutes and there's supposed to be 15 seconds in between each one. And, these are real people. So like a bunch of people don't follow the instructions and the timing got off, and they rolled with it. They were able to roll with it. And the team that was doing this, a live team of people running this event, and they did an amazing, amazing job. There was just nothing. It was phenomenal, right? And so while the main stage for this AV setup was amazing and impressive, they had a smaller version of this in every single breakout room because they were recording all of the sessions. And it really, really is impressive. And in fact, the question I had while I was there is I was like, wow, how can an event this size afford to have such an amazing AV setup? And I have no idea. I really don't know. It's not my job to question it, but it was very impressive in a very good way. And these are my takeaways from PodFest 2026. They have announced that they will continue to have this in PodFest in 2027. And they also have, a bunch of other things they do. So I do hope that if you are curious about what happens at this event and what it's like, that this video was helpful. And if you have anything to add, feel free to leave me a comment below. Thanks.